They didn't just lose a person, they lost the covering. And now the silence you left behind is louder than any prayer you ever whispered. Were you dismissed or divinely extracted? Did they walk away from you, or did God walk you out before the storm hit? Because what they called distance was actually deliverance, and what they thought was your weakness was the very thing shielding them from collapse. Chosen one, listen closely. This is not a coincidence. This is a scroll being unsealed. A sacred revelation rising from the ashes of your absence. The arguments are louder now. The peace has vanished. The same people who laughed when you wept now weep in confusion, because they're learning what heaven already knew. You were never ordinary. You were assigned, embedded, sent. Welcome to Chosen One's sanctuary, a holy ground for those who were hidden in plain sight and are now being called out of the shadows. Not to be seen, but to be sent. Do not cast away your confidence, for it will be richly rewarded. Hebrews 10:35. They cast you away, but God never did, and now the reward is not just coming, it's already been written, in the scroll, with your name on it. Stay until the very end. Because what's about to be revealed in this message might explain why your entire life has felt like a battle between invisibility and impact. This is the unsealing, the awakening, and the divine proof that what they lost wasn't a friend. It was a force, and heaven is just getting started. Divine misplacement or divine marking. They placed you in the background like furniture that never moved. Useful, present, but unnoticed. You thought it was humility. They treated it like invisibility, but heaven never overlooked you. While they were counting heads, God was counting fruit. You were never misplaced. You were marked. The rejection wasn't personal. It was prophetic. The displacement wasn't dysfunction. It was divine alignment. Like Joseph, thrown into a pit by his own brothers, your demotion was a disguise. You were sent ahead, not cast aside. The very spaces that broke your heart were the ones where your anointing was planted, watered in secret. And now, the fruit of your hidden labor is about to shake what once dismissed you. You weren't placed there for attention. You were stationed as a watchtower, a quiet sentinel guarding gates they didn't know existed. You weren't overlooked. You were overassigned. You were the answer dressed like a servant, and that's why they couldn't see you. Heaven wrapped you in silence to protect what the enemy would have devoured too soon. And now, the silence you wore is becoming the mantle they can no longer ignore. The background was never beneath you. It was the battleground where your oil was pressed. The silence that spoke. Loudest. They thought your silence meant you had nothing to say, but silence is the language of those who speak to heaven. While they filled rooms with noise, you filled them with atmosphere. You didn't shout to be heard. You prayed to be felt. When they mistook your peace for passivity, the heavens saw a vessel in spiritual formation. When Job sat in ashes, his silence thundered through eternity. Your quiet presence was not weakness. It was warfare. You were holding up walls they didn't know were cracking. The silence wasn't absence. It was divine surveillance. God was watching how you carried the room, not with volume, but with vision. And now that you've withdrawn, the covering has too. The laughter doesn't linger like it used to. The tension arrives quicker. The peace is gone. Not because you curse them, but because your prayers used to cover what their pride is now uncovering. Like Esther in the palace, unseen for years, until her silence broke the curse. What they dismissed as quiet, heaven called a shield. The fire that didn't break you. There were moments you thought, this is too much. The weight, the betrayal, the constant spiritual fatigue. But chosen ones don't just walk through fire. They are forged by it. The betrayals weren't just human. They were blacksmiths. Every mocking word was a hammer. Every rejection a furnace. And you, a sword being tempered for war. Like David in caves, running from a crown he hadn't worn yet, you were anointed but exiled, called but cornered. And still, you didn't retaliate. You didn't return fire. You were never burning out. You were burning off what couldn't go with you. Pain was your purification. You didn't lose your softness. You found your steel. And now, the fire that was meant to consume you has baptized you in endurance. They'll never understand how you made it through without bitterness. But heaven knows. Every scar is now a seal. The fire didn't expose your weakness. It revealed your worth. The consequences of dishonor. They didn't just dishonor you. They disrupted a divine equation. Heaven watches how people handle its vessels. When they mock your obedience, they mock the voice that sent you. Like the towns that rejected Jesus and saw no miracles, dishonor doesn't just silence the prophet, it shuts the heavens. The drought that followed your departure isn't emotional, it's spiritual law in motion. When dishonor enters, divine order exits. You were the bridge. They burned it. You were the oil. They spilled it. Now the ground is dry, and they wonder why the wells no longer flow. Like Elijah leaving the widow's home, the moment honor left, so did the provision. This isn't revenge, it's revelation. Heaven is showing them the cost of misidentifying their covering. They didn't just lose your presence, they lost access to God's favor flowing through you, the authority. You never asked for you, never needed a title to carry power. You didn't wear a robe. You wore obedience. The world crowns performance. Heaven crowns surrender. While others chased pulpits, you built altars in secret. You were the reason storms quieted, the reason doors opened, and yet you never demanded credit. You walked in rooms and atmospheres adjusted, not because of charisma, but because of covenant. Your silence was never empty. It was full of unseen authority. You carried the room on your back while they looked for someone louder. You were the Moses lifting your hands in private while the battle raged in public. The weight you carried would have crushed another, but you didn't fold. You fasted. You covered. You stood. They were never honoring you. They were surviving because of you. Heaven's reassignment has begun. There comes a point when God says, "Enough." And that's the moment heaven shifts your assignment. You weren't fired. You were freed. You weren't rejected. You were repositioned. Just like Joseph was moved from prison to palace in a single breath, your promotion comes without warning, but never without witness. You were faithful with little, and now heaven is enlarging your territory. What rejected you is about to watch God reward you. Your name is being whispered in rooms you've never entered. Doors are opening that no man can shut, not because you climbed, but because you endured. This is the moment where God flips the narrative. What was once loss will now look like strategy. The same exit they orchestrated has become the entryway to your next dimension. The rise of the remnant. You are not alone. There are others scattered across the earth. Quiet warriors, hidden prophets, intercessors dressed in simplicity. You've been surrounded by noise, convinced you were the only one. But Elijah thought the same, until God reminded him of the 7,000 who hadn't bowed. This is your confirmation. The remnant is real, and you are one of them. You weren't isolated. You were identified. Chosen ones are rising, not to build empires, but to host presence, not to demand titles, but to release truth. You've been tried, refined, silenced, but the silence is over. The trumpet is sounding, and your tribe is responding. The echo you hear in your spirit is the sound of the remnant waking up. The echo you left will become a roar. They called it quiet, but heaven calls it legacy. Your absence is not empty. It's echoing. In rooms, in minds, in spirits. In everything you touched. The fingerprints remain. What you built in silence will now speak for generations. And what they overlooked will now become the very foundation they rebuild upon. Like Abel, whose blood still speaks. Your prayers, your tears, your alignment, none of it was wasted. You were the whisper. Now comes the wave. God is multiplying what you carried. You are not just a vessel. You are a voice. And that voice is rising into a roar that will not be silenced again. What they rejected is about to awaken nations. They didn't break you. They revealed you. Because what felt like rejection was actually a revealing, not of who you were to them, but of who you've always been to God. You were never there to be accepted. You were placed to protect, to intercede, to uphold a peace they didn't have the maturity to steward. And now that you've been removed, the void testifies. The silence teaches. The absence speaks louder than presence ever could. Chosen one, you didn't walk away. You were lifted, extracted, reassigned. Heaven does not let its vessels linger in dishonor. You have endured the shadows, survived the fire, and been faithful in obscurity. You didn't demand recognition, but now recognition is chasing you, because your name was written in the scroll long before they ever misused your presence. You are not forgotten. You are not replaceable. You are the echo they never knew was holding everything together. You have been hidden. You have been holy. And now you are being unveiled. If this word awakened something ancient inside you, comment 7-7 in the comments as a prophetic act, a sign that you've heard heaven's confirmation. If a sentence, a moment, or a truth pierced your spirit, share it, declare it, speak it aloud. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Chosen One Sanctuary, not for content, for alignment, for connection, for the rising remnant. You are not alone. You are the next echo.